Hey everyone, it's Lisa Rose here with Hope for STD, and it's that time again for 30 videos in 30 days in honor of World Sickle Cell Day, which is June 19th. It's coming up fast. And this year's focus is going to be on clinical trials. And many people, myself included, think about clinical trials and they think of mice in laboratories and potentially dangerous drugs and why would I want to get involved, and that's exactly why I'm focusing on that this year, because as I've learned in the last 365 days since we last met for this specific video challenge, I've learned a lot about clinical trials and what all gets lumped into that category in the world of research. So I will add a disclosure here that I am not a doctor, I'm an educator. All of the information I got is readily available to the public on clinicaltrials.gov. All I did was do a search for sickle cell disease specifically in the United States, that with places that are currently recruiting, so not ones that have already finished the study, but ones that are currently recruiting and don't have an unknown status. So you can have an unknown status if you haven't updated your information as the researcher online in a certain amount of time. Sometimes it's due to funding, sometimes they pulled the study because they've already found out what they needed to faster than what they thought. Other times it can be stalled, just a variety of reasons. But if I'm actively looking for a trial, I want to make sure it doesn't have an unknown status. So I did all of this online, and there was 111 open, actively recruiting studies that were within the United States. I obviously can't go through all of them. So I tried to choose 30 that really give a good overview of all the different types of studies, which they're going to call trials, clinical trials that are out there that people living with sickle cell can participate in. So I tried to do a pretty broad overview, and you can definitely check out all of them on clinicaltrials.gov. So I divided it into two sections, the non-drugs and the drug-related ones. So the non-drug ones doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be invasive. Some of them do require blood draws or MRIs of your brain, things of that nature, but you're not putting anything into your body that you're not already taking for your illness. So there's no additional drug requirements. They're not studying anything of that nature. The non-drug ones also include interviews and telephone calls and paper tests, things of that nature. So I did half of them on that, and then the other half are on drugs, which are broken up into two different kinds of medications. One is what I would call old medications, ones that are already approved by the FDA for something else, and now they're trying it out to see if it works for sickle cell. Or new drugs, which are not yet FDA approved, but they have this theory that it would work specifically for sickle cell. So the new drugs are specifically targeted for sickle cell disease, and the old drugs had a different use, kind of like what they did with hydroxyurea, where it was used in cancer at a much higher level, and then they realized that it worked really great for some people living with sickle cell in lower doses. So those would be the old drugs. Side note, something that I've realized in participating in trials in the past, both for sickle cell disease and just as a healthy individual, is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes there's some type of incentive. Now, this could look like they'll pay for your travel. I've had a cab come to my house and take the person that was participating to and from the trial because it was really far or it took a long time. Sometimes you're there for a couple of hours, and they really want to make it as easy for you as possible and take away any of the barriers that might be keeping you from participating. I've also had it where there were some gift cards associated, or there were incentives, like if it was a really long trial, after you made it through the first 6-month mark, there was some kind of financial incentive of $100 or something like that. I will preface that with that it will be, if you do receive any kind of financial incentive, that it is taxable. So you would receive like a 1099 kind of self-employment form in the mail, and would have to pay taxes on that. So I found that out the hard way a couple years back, so I just thought I'd tell everybody out there. The other thing that I think is important to know is if you do tootle around on clinicaltrials.gov, the non-drug studies sometimes have what feels like kind of a negative title sometimes for people living with sickle cell. And as a parent of a child living with sickle cell, that was really difficult for me to read at first, and I was kind of taken aback, like, hey, now, not everybody living with sickle cell falls into this box, or why would I want to participate in this when you're studying something that feels like it's restricting us as as a community. And so then I had to take a step back and think, okay, this is just their hypothesis, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It could be, but it also means that they need more information from people living with sickle cell, and the least we can do as participants in care is to provide a variety of information. So what we know about sickle cell is that it's so different for every individual, and the more information they can get, the more people they can get to participate in their studies, the better overall view they can get of sickle cell, and the better puzzle pieces will start to fit together, and they can finally, maybe, hopefully, start to see some trends over time of how the disease progresses from a broad spectrum, and then also what are things that are just impossible to categorize and really need to be on an individual level. So hopefully you'll be inspired to participate in at least one of these studies. At the end of each one, I'm going to give you contact information that is found on clinicaltrials.gov, but of the person that they want you to contact, their phone number and their email, and then I'll put the link of where I found the information on clinicaltrials.gov back on there so that you can get some more information. So if you have any questions or comments, post them below, and away we go.